LDComics is a women-led, welcoming to all forum run by creators. We champion the graphic novel form, particularly works with an autobiographical voice. Our activity is towards supporting and equipping graphic novelists, especially but not exclusively people identifying as women. Established in 2009 by Sarah Lightman and Nicola Streeten as Ladies Do Comics, today LDComics is run by a committee of published graphic novelists: Rachel Ball, Emma Burley, Lou Crosby, Wallace Eates and Nicola Streeten. From the start, the core of LDC's activity has been the monthly meetings, hosting presentations from invited guests to a public audience in a welcoming atmosphere for networking and making friends. The introduction of LDC online monthlies aims to replicate the joy and stimulation of our physical meetups. Everyone is welcome.
My name is Caitlin.cass. Okay, let me see. I'm going to just press OK there. And I'm here to talk about my book, Suffrage Song. So it's the haunted history of gender, race, and voting rights in the US. It's a graphic history that documents the fight of women and the right to vote from 1848 to 1965. So 1920 is when women got the right to vote in the US, and 1965 is the year the Voting Rights Act passed, helping more Black women and minority women across the country to make sure they could vote. And the book is color-coded, so the earliest women's rights activists are yellow. Then people who were born like towards the end of their lives, but still were able to work alongside of them, are green. The women who were fighting at the turn of the century are blue, and these are women who got to vote. The women who are green also got to vote, but I tried to make that distinction because I think it's interesting that so many women started in this quest and weren't able to actually vote during their lifetime. And then the red section is the civil rights era. So I have a short excerpt here that I'll read because I think it helps explain the title of the book. All those sentimental songs. Music was part of the fight for women's rights from the beginning. Suffrage sheet music was sold at conventions to raise money. Suffrage songs built communal feeling at meetings and gave attendees a way to be involved. Our country now, from thee claim we our liberty. The songs themselves often suffered from the same platitudes and stereotypes that were found in women's magazines and sentimental literature of the day. Guarding homes, altar fires, daughters of patriot sires, their zeal our own inspires, justice to claim. They reinforce what historian Barbara Welter later dubbed the cult of true womanhood. A true woman embodied piety, purity, submissiveness, and domesticity. There she is, writing in 1966. Of course, the songs occasionally hammered at one of these pillars. I don't, and I can't, and I won't, and I shan't. I will speak my mind if I die for it. So one of the reasons I chose this title, Suffrage Song, is because of the way that the songs, I think, helped the movement in a lot of ways, helped move women's rights forward, but at the same time, they reinforced old stereotypes. And to me, this seemed very similar to what often happens in any political movement where people sort of have to sacrifice their agenda in order to make slow progress. And this is something that a lot of these women's encountered over and over again. And it's something I fear I'm also at risk at as I make the book. And then, of course, songs were a huge part of the civil rights movement as well. So here's Fannie Lou Hamer singing on a bus ride back from a citizenship training. And it was a way that she was actually to break tension when they were being chased by police. You can see in the cover too, I took a lot of inspiration from the visual ephemera of the time periods. And this on the right is a book of songs that would have been sold to raise money in the 1916 Women's Rights Convention. And then on the left is what the cover ended up looking like. So I definitely took a lot of inspiration from this. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the video on the right, but the book has a lot of fold outs that open up. So I wanted it to kind of feel like you're looking through an archive as you're reading the book. There's 4 different fold outs and they all open in a different way. And part of that was also because I published this first as mini comics. So you can see all these different fold outs that I've made for subscribers. So the one on the top left is a screen print. There's a risograph print. There's books that have fold out centers. I just really love creating these little books and different types of designs for them. And so I carried that through into the design of the final book. I think about like the book as a total artwork, and I wanted that to sort of recreate that experience of like discovery that you get when you're looking through old things. And so I created this book dummy. I printed it out on my printer at home, and then I just bound it and hand drew the cover with silver ink. And this is actually how I convinced Fantagraphics to print it with all these fold outs. I don't know if I had to go this overboard, but it worked for me. So. But so here's another example of the visual ephemera impacting the way I'm telling the story. So I made, so Godey's Lady Book was a women's magazine that was published in the mid 1800s. That was one of the first forums for women to write fiction, for example. And it was also a place where they could share recipes and sewing instructions and things like that. And of course, there were also a lot of fashion advertisements. But it was a big deal that it existed as this forum for them, but at the same time, they refused to be very radical in what was included in the magazine, and that included not talking about politics at all. So I made this satirical Godey's Fashions. This is a copper etching. 50,000 men died at Gettysburg. Maybe we should end slavery. Radicalism is unbecoming of a lady, and our dresses keep getting more amazing. So that's Godey's Fashions from September 1863. So the magazine did actually have some opinion because they published more anti-abolition book reviews than pro-abolition book reviews. So their readership expanded north and south. And so kind of late in there, you can still discover the prejudices of the time period. I think that the book's main focus is around this moment after the Civil War, where there was actually a pretty radical time where Black women, Black men, white women were all fighting together for equal rights and to all get the right to vote at the same time. But of course, in the sort of compromises, if you can call them that, of the Reconstruction era after Civil War, it was decided to prioritize the Black male vote, which, you know, they kept losing ground, and they were having to, because they wanted to reunite the country. And but here you see Frederick Douglass saying, you know, if women in general were being dragged from their houses and hung upon lampposts, then maybe they would need to vote like we do. Of course, he is excluding the Black women in that comment, and that was sort of what Elizabeth Cady Stanton's argument was. But of course, Frederick Douglass argued that that was still more important because they needed to have some say. And of course, that's not exactly what happened, but that was still the hope. But this caused this fissure in the women's rights movement in the United States between the NWSA and the AWSA. So Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony argued that they were against the 15th Amendment enfranchising Black men because it put the word male into the Constitution. And Lucy Stone and her husband, Henry Blackwell, were for it, believing that they should wait their turn. The women should wait their turn, essentially. The book also deals with this interesting overlap between spiritualism and suffrage. So spiritualism, talking to the dead, through Ouija boards and through other methods, it became very popular in the United States after the Civil War, in part to try to connect with these people that they had lost in their families. And it was actually an early forum where women were given the opportunity to speak in public, because it was okay if they were channeling, dead white guys, for them to speak in public. And it was a place where a lot of people got early courage to sort of break those norms. And interestingly, Elizabeth Cady Stanton actually wrote her famous Declaration of Sentiments on a seance table. She talked about having the spirits of the American Revolution behind her. So, they wrote the Declaration of Independence. Hers was called the Declaration of Sentiments. And so even though she might have been being a little cute there's also a genuineness to it where she felt that she had this radical power behind her, and that she was in some way channeling that energy. And I think that sometimes this kind of superstition or imagination gets written out of the history because it seems, a little goofy to people. But I think it's really interesting to actually try to see that these kind of imaginative moments are some of the things that help to move these movements forward. The book is also a lot about how women wrote their own histories. And so Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony wrote the History of Women's Suffrage volumes 1 through 3 with Matilda Jocelyn Gage. And here's Gage criticizing them. It seems to me that these books are primarily about the two of you. So they did write the books and they did try to get information from across the country. They asked people to mail things. They sort of weeded through all this material and they created their histories, but of course they were centered in it. So this is definitely fair criticism. And there were certain things that were left out that I'll talk about more towards the end of this. And later, at the turn of the century, women from the National Women's Party sort of famously protested at the White House gates, holding up these banners and just being silent there, and sort of permanently stationed. And there's actually stories about Mary Church Terrell, who is a founding member of the National Association of Colored Women and daughter of 2 former slaves, risking arrest to picket for suffrage at the White House gates. And she actually brought her daughter along and likely inspired other Black women to picket, but their names are lost to history because it was not published or publicized in the same way as the other women picketing at the White House, for fear that some racist women wouldn't feel that that was a good thing. And they would feel like it was hurting their cause rather than helping it. So I have another short excerpt to read, inspired by this particular moment. But what does it mean to be lost to history? There they are picketing. Lost suggests passivity, but history is active. In 1921, Mary Church Terrell asked the NWP to pressure Congress to investigate the disenfranchisement of Black women across the South. No woman in this country needs the ballot more than the colored women of the South. History is made, written, edited. There is more than one to write. Terrell's words were not recorded in the stenographer's report, and they were left out of the published meeting minutes. They are victims of lynching, the conflict-free system, the Jim Crow lines. Just as every choice erases possibility, each history written leaves behind casualties. The National Women's Party refused to help. Is it possible to write history that leaves room for their ghosts? Miss Paul did not want to inject the race problem into her suffrage work. It's NWP member Ella Murray. Ghosts to show us what could have been, could be, if our systems made it be. Alice Paul asked me, what do you women want me to do? Ghosts to suggest new systems, new ways of being. I said, I want you to tell us whether you endorse the enforcement of the 19th Amendment for all women. History that breathes, that lives, that creates possibility. Paul refused to help. She feared losing like the ground many women had gained with the 19th Amendment. Universal suffrage didn't work for Aunt Susan. Why would it work for us? History that refuses to accept a broken system as the only system. Alice Paul had a chance to reject racism. What if she had taken it? So this, again, I think sort of underlines the importance of a radical imagination, while also kind of lamenting and acknowledging the fact that, like, it makes sense that small steps were taken. But what if the bigger step was just asserted, you know, like it just makes you wonder. So there's a couple other women I wanted to mention who are featured in the book. So Sojourner Truth, who is an abolitionist and women's rights activist who delivered a famous speech that has since become known as the Ain't I a Woman speech, where she says, I'm also a woman. But she actually was unlikely to have said that. She would have more likely said, aren't I a woman? Because she was a native Dutch speaker. And so she gave this speech at a women's rights convention in Akron, Ohio, and it was transcribed in publications in Southern slave vernacular, most likely because it was felt by the people rewriting it and recording it that way that it would be stronger for their movement. But there's been recent movements to try to get her words corrected. With websites and things, just spreading awareness about this. So her story just talks about the way she sort of reasserted her power to decide how she was shared in the press, even though she was illiterate by choice and really believed in the power of spoken word. So she hired somebody to help her write her autobiography, and she also used images and photo cards to help reassert control over how she was depicted. And then we have Zakala Shah or Gertrude Bonin, who is a member of the Yankton Dakota tribe and a co-founder of the National Council of American Indians. She was a Native woman who actually really wanted to vote, even though that was controversial at the time because a lot of people felt that, you know, as prisoners of war in the country, essentially, they shouldn't want to vote. But she really believed it could help their position. And she was also sometimes criticized for the way she adopted Native dress that wasn't always like specific to her tribe, and the way that she was against the use of peyote in the Native American church. But a lot of Native American studies scholars have come to talk about it as survivance, this term of sort of maybe coming to terms with some assimilationist, or what would some people might call assimilationist ideas, where you sort of adopt the rules of the dominating party in order to survive. And how that's like sometimes a necessary part of activism, unfortunately. And then the book ends with Fannie Lou Hamer, who fought to register to vote and was actually shot. Her house was shot at 16 times for this attempt. And she famously went on to the Democratic National Convention to talk about this experience, which I think was actually one of the sort of impactful speeches of the civil rights movement in the United States. And it was actually so upsetting that Lyndon Johnson, who was seeking re-election, wanted to take it off the air. But it actually backfired. He switched to announcing that Kennedy had the 9-month anniversary of Kennedy's assassination. But anyway, ultimately it backfired because her speech was aired during primetime television instead. So it sort of ends with this story and just with the assertion that, yes, this is the United States, and just there's more to be done and this isn't over. So that's the book. That's my Instagram.
Hello everyone, I hope you all are well. My name is Wasfa Kamal and I'm from Karachi, Pakistan, and I'm an illustrator and graphic designer as well. I started my illustration journey in 2020 and it has been amazing since then. I have a degree in films and TV and films, but I accidentally became an illustrator. So yeah, it has been amazing since then, and I'm going to share some of my work with you all. But I just wanted to give you a little bio of myself. So my illustration style is very versatile, I would say that, and it's very evolving. I don't confine myself to a single approach. I like exploring different type of illustration styles, that what you are going to see now. And my work majority evolves around social issues and stereotypes that exist in our society. And I also draw inspiration from my memories and culture, since I'm a Pakistani, so we have a really bright and rich culture. So these elements help me shape my identity as a digital illustrator. So without wasting any time, I'm going to show you my work next. So the first project that I'm going to share is about Nicola next. Yeah, so I was a part of creating heroines, as Nicola told, in 2021. So I collaborated with two artists from India and Nepal, and together we came up with this idea called Dream Across Borders. So the main goal of our project was to create a platform where women can share their dreams across borders. Okay, so as for my dream project, it is called Dhabai Khawateen, which is a Urdu word. In English, its translation is Cafe for Women. So, as for my dream project, it was about a women-based cafe where women can relax or spend some time and have a meaningful conversations and have a cup of tea. It was about that. A place purely owned by women, run by women, and especially for women. Next. So dhaba basically means a roadside restaurant where snacks and local dishes are served, which are these places are usually filled by men. We don't go, women in India and especially Pakistan cannot go at later night, because of our safety. And in the past, such horrific cases have been occurred of kidnapping, harassment, and rape and whatnot. So my idea was to create such space where we can enjoy and have a cup of tea and enjoy, and it's purely owned by women. Next. So it was all about it. I created around 4 illustrations, showing different aspects of the dhaba, where the girls are chilling and having tea, and I wanted also to have a space where we can have a meaningful conversations about different struggles which women face and everything. And on in the third illustration, you can see there are local Pakistani snacks, roti and samosa and tea, of course. So this was my personal project for the creating heroines. It's called Dhabai Khawateen, and it was an amazing, I really enjoyed. That was my first international project, to be honest, if I say. So it was a really great experience with Nicola. And next, I'm going to share with you this is a project which I made for a Dastak Foundation, which is a Pakistan non-profit organization working for gender equality and feminism. So the main theme of these posters were how women feel in public places, which are usually male-dominated places. I showed three places, main three cities of Pakistan, which is Karachi, Lahore, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So I showed three different locations. The first one you are seeing is a marketplace. In first artwork, I have shown a mid-aged woman looking up at the market. I wanted to show a larger than life picture type of style in my illustration, so I made this. And a woman looking up in the market, which is usually a male-dominated place, especially in Pakistan, if I talk about, because I've made a Karachi southern area, which is not safe for women, if I'd say. Because how in the past some instances have been occurred which women are afraid to go alone. So basically, I have shown a woman looking up at the market with a very, subtle expressions and no expressions in her eyes. And in the second one, next. In the second one, I have shown a different location, which is a Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and I have shown a fully covered woman looking at the bus station, which is majority occupied by men, and it's really really hard to travel in these public transports because it's almost filled up with the men, and we have a fear of getting harassed and being kidnapped and whatnot. So in the third one, I have made a little girl which is looking at the park. It's a location of a Lahore very famous one, Minare, Pakistan. And I'm depicting that children cannot even play on their own in the park because of fear of getting kidnapped. Because these spaces are now, we can see, are majority of truly sad. So the point was we always need a somehow a male companion in order to enjoy, to shop, or even just to go in a park. So I wanted to show that these places are not safe for women, um currently not safe for women because of some things has happened. There was a big case that happened in India, daily crime, where a woman was brutally raped and she was later killed on. So these transports have become a really, these are our basic necessities, but we cannot go alone without a male companion. So I wanted to show this. It was made for Women Day. So the main theme of these posters were, are we safe in these public places? So I got an amazing response. I uploaded this on my personal social media, Instagram, and people loved it. However, I got some backlash as well. Obviously we all do somehow, but overall people loved it, and it was amazing working on this because it was a really different approach, making larger than life characters. And yeah, so this was my another favorite project. This is my personal project. It's called Vintage Women of Pakistan. I wanted to give a new perspective, and I wanted to see that how these illustrations, how these photographs will look with a little pop of color. So this is my personal favorite project. I have written down, if you can see, a caption as well. For example, this one is Pakistan member of the Sindh Muslim Women Nationals Guard during a march in practice on November 1947. So I just made a one main character of that woman. I have filled a color in it. And next. So this one is a participant of a film festival in Karachi, and I just wanted to give a really bright pink color to it, and it's looking lovely for me, for myself. The third one is it's a ladies. I'm sorry, I cannot read it. Standing during the second test match between Pakistan and India in Gaddafi Stadium in 1978. I wanted to show, the bright culture of Pakistan, the dresses and everything, the prints they are wearing. It's looking, it's giving me a nostalgic feel. Yeah. So the next one is this one, the Pakistan Television Corporation 10th birthday in 1974, featuring our late Raya's daughter. And she was the first woman to appear on Pakistan television. And she is wearing proper traditional Pakistan suit, sari and that traditional jewelry. And the second one is the air hostess of Pakistan Airline, which is PIA, on the runway in 1965. So these all photographs are in basically black and white. I just wanted to give him a pop of a color, and I uploaded these on last year on Independence Day of Pakistan, and it was loved by everyone. I'm thinking to do this type of thing again because 14 August is around the corner, and I would love to do to see the photos in a little pop of color. So yeah. So this is, I have worked with UNICEF as an illustrator, where I had to create illustrations on different issues. So I was on a contract with them, is UNICEF South Asia. So I have made different type of illustrations on different social issues. The first one you see is is about the children are often pressured to choose careers and to fit in society expectations rather than their own interests. Because as in South Asia, we think that being a doctor engineer is good enough rather than being an artist. People look frown upon if you are an artist or if you are a painter. So we have such a we have such a laid back thinking. So this pressure can come from parents and school and society who believes that certain jobs are prestigious and securable for the future. So as a result, children end up pursuing the careers that they don't think that they will going to be, don't make them happy. So this was the idea, and have showed a little screen and have shown a mobile screen where a person is changing the profession and seeing how the kid would look, engineer, doctor. So I've shown the doctor screen, and we can see the really sad expressions of the children. And apart from that, he is holding a book, drawing book. So yeah. The second one is this poster was the awareness poster on the child marriage and how child marriage can take away a girl future by forcing her to marry in a young age. And when girls marry young, they often have to leave their school and miss out on education and a lot of future um, possibilities. So this limits their chances of getting good job, getting good education, and becoming a financially independent. So this was my idea to make a curtain, half curtain, and I have written "Don't close the curtain" on my future. And you can see in a very I have made a school background as well on a curtain with a lower opacity, and she is looking at her future where she is making food for her husband, which is obviously in old age husband, and she's obviously a kid. So this was a poster on child marriage awareness poster. uh this one is also made in especially in Bangladesh, I would say Bangladesh, yeah, and India. Safe and hygienic toilets are basically very much important for the girls safeties, and we don't have in our school, in our government school, if I talk about, especially as they reach puberty. Without proper sanitization facilities, many girls feels uncomfortable and unsafe and embarrassed, which leading to during their menstrual periods they miss out their classes because of this, because of no proper washrooms. So this often results in them falling behind in their studies and not missing out the main important classes. So this was a awareness posters as well, that safe toilets can keep me school. I have divided this illustration into two parts. On the left one we can see she is studying, in the right one we can see she is in the natural clothing, and we can see a proper washroom is built on. So this was the main idea, that safe toilets can keep girls is in school. And the second one is about flood awareness. So in recent years, Pakistan has experienced devastating floods impacting millions of people around Pakistan. And I think in 2022, it was the most severe floods which occurred in Pakistan. Over 33 million people were affected and displaced from their homes. So this was the poster of that. I have written, floods have broken our hearts home and I cannot read that. Floods have broken our hearts home and let me read it, and our health, obviously. So this was the poster where I've shown a young girl. She is crying, and from her tears I have made different elements which she has lost, obviously a house, books, education, healthcare, and farms, and etc etc. So I wanted to show this. I have made a really sad expression, a crying expression of her, and this was for the for the floods which occurred in 2022. This one is the left one we see is I made for the mental health awareness poster. Our society often stigmatize mental health discussions, and creating an environment where individual feels really reluctant to speak about their mental health and their struggles. So this was about that culture norm, fear of judgment, and misconception about mental illness contribute to its silence. Obviously, reading leading many to suffer in silence. So this was about it. I have made a boy with a he wanted to talk, because I have made a bubble where I have written, I want to talk about mental health. So it's not completed because someone is touching him up with a zip on his mouth, and I've shown a different elements of mental health, black clouds around it, and it's eating him up. He's not talking about his mental health, so I have shown a different, cracks on his head. So yeah, this was about mental health awareness. And the second one we see, it's about education as well. Restricting access to mobile phones, especially to boys, can definitely affect a girl's educational opportunities, and it's kind of common in South Asia. So we wanted to show that girls also deserve to have these necessities in school, not only boys. So this was awareness posters as well. Obviously this limits their growth and also affect their future and career prospects. So we wanted to show this by making a mobile phone where the boys are standing up and the girl is trying to reach. And yeah, it was about this. And it's written, don't leave me behind. Okay, so this one is about it's for Dastak Foundation. These next artworks, whatever I'll be sharing, are basically my personal projects, and this one is for Dastak Foundation as well. So it's written, no means no, where we can see a girl who is looking completely fine in the mirror, but on the right side we can see her face is half burned. So it is about in South Asia, especially when a girl refused to marry. Just give me a minute. Cannot see the screen. Where is it gone? Yeah, sorry. So when a girl refuse marriage proposals and refuse to stay in unhealthy marriages, the horrific act of acid effect is sometimes used as a form of punishment, which is horrible, to be honest. Especially in South Asia and India, it has been used to form as a form of punishment, and it's brutal. It damages a girl's life. So I wanted to show that, and I have written on the top of the illustration, my mistake: denial to marriage proposal, refuse to establish a sexual relation, and escalation of persistent domestic violence. So it's about that. We wanted to create awareness that how acid attacks can ruin a girl's life. So this was a collaborated project with Dastak Foundation. And the second one, it's my personal project, where I have shown different cultural sides of Pakistan. We can see a mix and match of cultural heritage of Pakistan. Have shown a girl in veil, in abaya, in desi clothing, in Balochi clothing. So it's about being stronger together, and you can do it if you will stay together, and we are stronger than anyone. So it was for a women day. Okay, so this one on the left side, it's my personal artwork as well. So in our society, we have a really obsession with white complexion, and it has been existent from a very very long time ago. It's sad that we used to hear that someone got rejected for a marriage because her complexion was not white enough. The person was too dark, and we often heard that someone was bullied because of his dark or her dark complexion. So it's a very common thing in South Asia that people make fun if someone has a dark complexion. So obviously, apart from that, advertisement industry promoting fairness creams which show that a girl or a boy can achieve anything with a fair skin is totally absurd. So this actually makes the audience to believe that the fair skin is the only answer, to your worries, to the marriage, to getting your perfect job. So we have this kind of thinking, and we often use a lot of fairness cream and serums and bleach and whatnot, just to be just to have a perfect white complexion. So it's a really old topic in our society, where we desi people have this obsession with white skin. So yeah, This was about it. And the second one you are showing, it's my also personal project. So this one is, it's about that how it's really hard and traumatic experience in order to do an arranged marriage in Pakistan, in India, basically in South Asia, because people have such an unrealistic list of things that they would want in their soulmate. So I illustrated a vending machine where you can make your own soulmate. I have listed different type of things. Select your gender, select your obsession. Basically, I have made a little humanistic lines, and I have written a humanistic lines as well. Age limit, education, property, mother-in-law. Do you want your mother-in-law to be alive or not? These type of things exist in our, when we are searching for our, soulmate. So I know this is very horrible, so I just made this. And I have also written a little caution on the top that don't forget to look in the mirror before using. So it was a little on humoristic side. And yeah, also you can see I have made a little where we put our coin in the vending machine. Instead, I have written, please put your self-respect here. So yeah, this was it. This was my personal project, and it was all about it. Thank you so much. I hope you all like my work. If you want to check more of my work, you can check on my website, and I have written my Instagram as well, through Wasfa.
I'm really old now, and so I've got to, and most people here wouldn't know me from Adam, so I've got like 45 years of cartooning to get into half an hour. And so I'm just going to run through my foolish life. I call it my foolish life because my Facebook page is called These Foolish Things. And the next strapline is, they remind me of you. So I'm just going to go through these things, and if I can get this to work. So that's the first one. Right. This is a book that came out just not quite a year ago now, and it's from Knockabout Comics, and this book has now been chosen by Bobby Joseph, who is the comic laureate here in Britain, in England, and it's to go on to national library lists. So it's actually a comic book that's being promoted to go into national libraries. And also last week I found out I've been longlisted for the Polari Prize, which is like a book, a prize of queer books, long listed. So we've got a long way to go before that. So what I want to do is, how did I get there when I started off as a school teacher in 1981? It says 1981, and so I became a cartoonist completely by accident, really. And so this is me as a school teacher. You can see it's a long time ago. Right. And at the same time, I was also painting flowers. And I had this exhibition. This is in 1976. I was painting flowers. I thought of myself as the Georgia O'Keeffe of the Northwest. I'm from Manchester. And this exhibition actually got me a very nice review in The Guardian. The Guardian, which is a major national paper here in Britain. But it came out in two sections. It was the Manchester Guardian, which this was in, but then it was also written up into the National Guardian. And this is such a, I don't know, camp explanation of what my paintings are like, but it says here that I can't actually read this because I've got this. Oh no, I'm doing it wrong. Sorry, I'm going to have to go back. I don't know how to go back. I don't know how to go back.
Click the other way.
Okay, thank you. So this got a glowing review in the Manchester Guardian and reprinted in the Guardian proper the next day. So this is a story taken out of the book I've just shown you, and this is my boyfriend at the time, and he guffawed at this review, which said, "Did you just guffaw at my review in the Guardian proper?" Yes, I did. It's hilarious. Snort. Delicate, fragile, and ephemeral, you, Shenton style, could have grown out of a sprinkling of flower petals. Yuck, yuck, as if startlingly burst its bonds in evanescence hues of gold and blue fire. I mean, how camp is that? You should cut this out and send it to the gay press. They'd love it and go and see the show for themselves. What, to Knutsford? Maybe. I know they won't, but I photocopy the clipping and send an invitation anyway. And of course, I hear nothing. Is there a letter with a London postmark for me today? No, Dave, nothing except this plain brown envelope, which is most likely your complimentary copy of Gay Whatever. So now I see exactly what the arts pages in the gay press comprise of. Copy of Gay Whatever. Painting, nude man. Dance, nude men. Opera, soprano plus nude man. Poetry, poetical nude man talking to a farmer. And so what I did is not write a complaining letter that they didn't come and see my exhibition. I sent them a cartoon. So this is my first ever cartoon. This is a bit doctored because the other one was a bit too risque. So this is a picture of an art exhibition where all the pictures are abstract except for one. And I said, oh, I expect this is the token beefcake, so the artist can get a write-up in Gay News. And they still didn't come to my exhibition, but they said, David, would you send us some more cartoons? And so I sent them some more cartoons. I didn't actually know I could do cartoons. I just sent them some more cartoons. And I sent them maybe 30 years of these cartoons, one a week. And between Kate Charlesworth and myself, we actually flooded the gay press for 30 years, documenting queer history, not just the historical events, but the costumes, the turns of phrases, the hair makeup, everything. The whole cartoon, the whole history of gay British history is in the work between me and Kate. And I think we should be applauded for that, actually. Right, so there I am. This is what I look like. And that was supposed to be a check shirt, except it looks more like a catering shirt, doesn't it? But then that was two-tone at the time as well, which is a kind of music that was all the rage at the time. Right, so Stanley, my character became known as Stanley, and he got into all sorts of tricks, and he was so popular that we actually managed to get a book out of it. Gay Men's Press in London actually published a book. This is 1983, and this is kind of like, it was very thin, a thin graphic novel. And it turns out that this is probably the first ever LGBT graphic novel in Europe, or it could even be the world. It was because it was a complete story. But who knows? Nobody's contradicted me yet. So, Stanley and the Mask of Mystery. And on the top of that, I was invited to do a cartoon Shakespeare. And I can see my drawing has changed. I could never draw that. And after years of doing stuff, you actually learn how to draw, and in a different style. So it's no longer flower paintings. I'm drawing Salome chopping John the Baptist's head off with lots of blood, which I just did with a ruler. I've just loaded that blade with red ink, and then just got a ruler and just went like that with it. It was really daring on that. Anyway, the cartoon Shakespeare's was far too wordy, and I only had 96 pages. So instead, I chose to do a one-act play by Oscar Wilde, and that came out quite nicely, I think. I have no idea what that one's about. And then the national papers came out, and Steve Bell, who is a very famous cartoon in Britain, he used to take quite a few holidays, and and there was always a gap when he wasn't there. And I thought, well, why is there always a gap when Steve Bell goes on holiday? They should get somebody in there to fill that gap. And I thought, well, I could fill that gap. So I sent in 6 cartoons for a week, and they were called Steve Bell Will Be Back Next Week, knowing that, and I just did a cartoon of where he went, what he did there when he went there, and then I broke into his room, into his room and snuck around and poked around in the drawer, and I did a whole 6 days of where Steve Bell and that was great, because then after that, The Guardian got back in touch with me and said, David, Steve Bell is going to be away again next week. Could you do some more? And I did that for 13 years. So although I was in The Guardian, I was never in The Guardian. I was just filling in for other people all the time. So this is a Guardian cartoon of mine. So here we are. Clever Duck. A clever play on words of Clever Dick, of course. Okay, and your chosen subject, the plays of William Shakespeare, the tragedies in particular, especially Hamlet, focusing on Act 2, Scene 2, and concentrating on line 481, word 4, which is strumpet. Correct, sorry about that. Right, so we did The Guardian. I also, after that, I actually became a cartoonist. The teaching had disappeared. I actually became a cartoonist and illustrator. And this is about 1990, mid-85, I stopped teaching, I think. And so I got all these other jobs. And this is from Solicitor's Journal. And this is the kind of thing they gave you an article to read, which was usually something you didn't understand. And you could find something in that article to actually it couldn't be too funny. It couldn't overshadow the article. You couldn't really have the article being secondary to your illustration. So this is a very simple one about pornography on the internet. And so I just invented internet curtains where you could just string them across in front of the screen. And I think that would sell. Don't you think those would sell? I think so. So that was the that was the Solicitor's Journal. This is building design. This is about an architectural magazine. And now we have this architect being tempted by the devil to actually build houses and all sorts of buildings on rainforest land. And you see, it just tells you what the article's about, really, rather than it. I think it's quite funny, but. And my favourite one, which is Kate phoned up and said, "Oh, the optician has rung me and said that their cartoonist has died, and they've asked me to do some cartoons for the optician." And she said, "I'm really busy at the moment. And would you?" And I said, "Well, I could probably think of 6 glasses jokes. So this is one of the glasses jokes. There's this lady, and she's looking at the fruit stall. I'll have 2 of the big ones at the back, 2 of the small ones at the front, and a couple of the funny shaped ones at the sides." And the fruiter is saying, "It's first day with your new varifocals, love." And I was in the optician. It was weekly, and so I was in the optician for 25 years. Not just 6 jokes. I thought of over 1,200 jokes. And this cartoon actually paid my mortgage or my rent. Each week I could rely on it, but Saturday came around and, oh no, I've got the optician to do. But I got paid, and that is the greatest compliment. Getting paid is the greatest compliment, isn't it, really? All they just wanted, really, is to have something fit. I mean, how funny do you have to be in the optician? Not very funny at all. Okay, now, we have to get a little bit serious with my cartoons. My cartoons now, I've been peddling rubbish in the gay press for maybe 10 years, just any old joke would do kind of thing. But then politics and illness hit the gay community. And so we had to, my cartoons and everybody's cartoons really had to grow up and tackle serious issues. And even though if you don't even think like the last speaker, Wasfa, she dealt with lots and lots of difficult political choices. And so we'd had it cushy, really. All we had was just Margaret Thatcher, and so, you know, just silly people like. But now we've got an AIDS crisis here, and so the cartoons had to. And Norwich, where I live, suffered with the AIDS crisis very early on. So this is we had our own AIDS helpline very early on, and I just drew this for them. It didn't actually work, the AIDS helpline, because Norwich is only a small city, and you would phone up and to ask a question on the AIDS helpline, but you would recognize the voice of the person who answered the phone, and so you say, "Oh, is that you, Mike?" And then so you just put the phone down. So it didn't really work, but you know, we did our best with that. I had 3 very close friends died during the AIDS crisis, and this is a cartoon I did of them, and this is one of, you know, like days before each one of them was still. They were just asking for things. So these are just the last kind of requests that I could do something with these 3. Martin, he just wanted some mushy peas and mint sauce from Norwich Market. And Nicholas, he just wanted a bit of luxury. So I took in a tiny telly and we watched Babette's Feast on the telly. And Jim, he just wanted some fresh air. So we found our way onto the hospice roof. So those were the 3 friends. And they're all in their 30s, you know, poor people. Right. The next thing, you can see my work is getting more political and kind of madder. We have something in Norwich called the Proud Canaries. This is a football team. Norwich City are called the Canaries. Apparently, they bred canaries in the Victorian times, and so one of our famous players was somebody called Justin Fashanu, and he's the only at that time, and I think there's one more now, the only out gay footballer in the Premier Division. And he had kind of like a very good career with Norwich. He loved being in Norwich, so he's become a kind of hero for us. But then he went on and was treated very badly with other football clubs, and he eventually took his own life. But this is a scarf that I drew about a golden goal that he scored, and this scarf was then turned. The supporters said, "Would you mind if we turned it into a 20-meter banner?" And so, and I also knitted. I can knit. I also knitted it into a. Well, it's a massive scarf. But then the supporters actually turned it into, look at that, 20-meter banner. And that the wording on there is what the narrator or the commentator said when as Justin scored his goal. So I'm behind there somewhere. Right, that's okay. I'm still knitting, and what we've got here now is a huge jumper. This is Sheringham Museum, and they were trying to get lottery money to support them, but they couldn't because they weren't inclusive enough. And so they said, "Davey, what can we do to make our museum more inclusive?" And they're at the centre of fishermen's jumpers. Sheringham is on the North Norfolk coast, and they have a special kind of jumper that jersey that the fishermen wear. And so, why don't we knit a 12-foot jersey with all the symbols, the LGBT symbols all around it? And so we did. And you can see that then the Puppet Museum decided what it should have is a head, and I didn't do the head, but this lady on the she's called Lisa, next to the arm with the yellow circle, the purple circle on the yellow background. She actually made the head, and it's just great, really. So that's that. What else we got? And now I run the men's knitting group. We have a men's knitting group at Norwich Library every month, and it's open to anybody who identifies as a man. So it's kind of political as well. It's got a trans pocket handkerchief. And just today I found out there's going to be a new television program like Sewing Bee, on the television from Channel 4, and they invited me to go on to this program. I'm not going to go. I can't knit like that. And it's going to be set in Scotland at some wool craft somewhere. So watch out, Kate. You could do that. Oh yeah, Diane, you can do that. Right. Okay, this is another one of my creations. It's terrible that men can't hold hands. And as you get older, it's even worse. You can't hold hands. Me and my partner can't hold hands because we're men and because we're old. How many old men have you ever seen walking around holding hands? Maybe not in this country. So this is a shirt. I just bought 6 shirts from the charity shop, cut them into stripes, and then I sewed the middle sleeve together. So it's one garment. So you have to hold hands because the middle sleeve is one sleeve. And that's in the museum here in Norwich. So that they call it the I can't remember, the duo shirt. I don't know where that came from, but anyway, that's just one garment. And this is Norwich Pride, where I just drew all the icons that people wanted on the screen. This is for Norwich Pride number 10, 10th year of the Norwich Pride. So the people I do know her, George Michael is here, and the Cowardly Lion is here, and Frankenfurter, but there's lots of people on there I've never heard of. Because I'm so old, so you don't know them. Anyway, that was that. And the final thing I've got that's showing off here is that this is in Norwich Castle Museum, and this is kind of like my AIDS quilt, sort of, because I'd moved to London, but still missed Norwich so much. And all these badges up the top are all about Norfolk countryside badges. You know, I've been to Wroxham, sort of thing. And all these in the duvet of love, the word part, are all LGBT badges. And so I just wanted to remember my 3 friends that I'd shown you, but by using my 2 cartoon characters. And so I just made this, and then I just took the black duvet cover off my bed and pinned all these badges, about 4,000 badges on there. And that's kind of like my AIDS memorial quilt. And now that's in Norwich Castle Museum, which I'm very proud of, really. Anyway, so the baton of activism is lost. This is one of my cartoons that I've done recently. This is because now the fight of the gay the gay fight is over, but the trans fight is well and truly on. So the baton of activism is lost, but hang on, what's this? So we've got gay and trans. So that the fight goes on. Right, I'm going to now tell you a story from I'm just going to tell you, I've got time here. I'm just going to tell you a complete story now from 40 Lies. And this is about the story about equal marriage in Britain. But it's taken from a personal viewpoint. Okay, so this is about, I don't know, there's about 17 pages, but I'll run through them. It's called My 4 December Weddings. Okay, I can't read that because it says this meeting is being recorded right over it. You have to read the top bit because I can't read the top line because it says this meeting is being recorded all over it. During the 70s, I think, the AIDS crisis, many gay men found out they were HIV positive 1 week, I'm sorry, and died a few short weeks later. Some of these young men had partners they had lived with, often for many years. There was no legal paperwork available in those days to say they were a couple. Oh, David, I don't know what to do about this. Can I get rid of that? Oh, I can. Perhaps the will might have been left, perhaps not. I'm sorry. Every now and again, when one partner died, if he's the mortgage holder, his family would step in. A family, perhaps, who had never come to terms with their son's sexuality, let alone of his dying of AIDS. No, I can't do this. It won't let me. It won't let me go on to the next one now.
Click on the image.
Oh.
Hold on.
deny the existence of there ever being a partner, and then oust the partner out of his own home, not even allowing him to attend the funeral. This situation was not all that common, but common enough that something had to be done about it. I met John in March 1995 at a party in Brixton. I was 46, John was 47. His first word to me, twiggle it. It's a sort of crisp. I was living in Tottenham, he was from Bournemouth. We both worked in the HIV/AIDS sector, me writing, drawing, health, education, safer sex leaflets. I'm a cartoonist. John was an NHS, National Health Service, clinical psychologist. One of his tasks was counselling patients who had just received their HIV test results. I'm sorry. We soon became a steady couple, and 2 months later on the Cobb at Lyme Regis, let's live together. I moved to Bournemouth where we bought a house. I say we bought a house, joint mortgages weren't available to same-sex couples then. Joint? Kidding, right? Apparently I didn't have a proper job, cartoonist, remember? So the house was in John's name, despite the name on the gate, Johnny Dave House. Neither of us had a grasping family, but we did write a will. However, wills can be contested. Matching clothes, okay. Tattoos, okay. We had to make our coupledom a thing. There was absolutely nothing official in the mid-1990s except the joint Tesco club card. That's a supermarket. An application form with a tick box that didn't specify gender. We got our club card registered as 2 misters, printed in black and white. Cool. In time for Christmas. December wedding number 1. But it probably wouldn't stand for very much in any court of law. We moved back to London in 1997. John got a job at Hackney Hospital. We bought a house in E5 in John's name. Still no mortgages available. Joint? You're kidding, right? 4 years later, in autumn 2001, Ken Livingstone, London's mayor, set up the London Partnership Register. It's the first public organisation in Britain to offer recognition to same-sex couples. It costs £85 for a ceremony lasting less than 10 minutes in a sparsely decorated room, and you get a certificate that has no legal standing. Well, then we must jump at the chance. The official declaration of our relationship was to be heard somewhere behind Westminster Abbey in the visitors' centre of the Greater London Council offices. On our way, we passed a wall covered in ivy. We broke off 2 pieces and wore them in our lapels. There must have been a health centre in the building too, because I seem to remember posters in the corridors, pictures of tooth decay and smokers' lungs. The official behind the desk greeted us by name. Welcome, David. Welcome, John. And then he asked, but where's your harpist? John replied, I'm sorry, I didn't know we had to bring one. It says here you're bringing a harpist. Well, I can only apologise. Anyway, December wedding number 2. Yes, a certificate, still completely useless in that court of law, but hey, it's a start. Another 4 years passed before wedding number 3, 21st of December 2005, the very first day that civil partnerships took place. Civil partnership, noun, a registered union of a same-sex couple with rights similar to those of marriage. And we booked the very first one at Hackney Town Hall at 10 AM on that very first day. We asked John and Bridge, our next-door neighbours, if they'd like to come along. Are you busy? We gave them each a sprig of ivy and caught the 38 bus. Traffic was light. We arrived a bit early. What about coffee first? But Featherspoons was surprisingly full, people eating breakfast and catching up on the news. Elton John was getting married that same day. Fucking Elton. And puffs. And we decided not to stay. Sorry about the swears there. There's a bit of swearing going on there. This was the registrar's very first day too. She was nervous. Would you like some music? Maybe say a few words. No, thank you, and was rather disappointed that all we wanted was to be shown where to sign. As she dipped her brand new fountain pen into a bottle of blue blank ink, John said, "Hold on. There's already writing on this page. I thought David and I were to be the first." "Oh, that, yes. 2 women called in this morning and did it on their way to work. But we've been nobbled. Yes, they didn't want any music either." And then there's a crying behind us, and I said, "Bridge, are you okay?" She said, "I always cry at weddings. This is so beautiful." This is so beautiful. And that was before we'd even signed. Afterwards, on the town hall steps, we asked the passers-by to take our one wedding photo. Then it was back on the 38th, this time into town and lunch at the Ritz. And there we were, 2 middle-aged gay men, now official, indisputable partners, at last, taking well over 10 years to get a joint bank account, a joint mortgage, next of kin status, legal responsibility, rights, the same as marriage, more or less. John retired, we left London and moved to Norfolk, and 9 years later, 19th of December 2014, we celebrated Standard Conversion Friday. So romantic. The Marriage Same-Sex Couples Act came into being earlier that year, the first wedding on the 29th of March. These are imagined reactions at the Hackney Breakfast Bar. But like Elton and Dave, we'd left it until December to convert our civil partnership into marriage so we wouldn't have too many dates to remember. And we did it at Islington Town Hall. No witnesses needed. We found some ivy. We queued at a sliding window, signed a form on the dotted line, and we were married. Plus, it had been backdated to our civil partnership in 2005. Instantly, we'd been married for 9 years already. John was a bit disappointed to have missed all the anniversary presents: paper, cotton, leather, linen, wood, iron, wool, bronze, and clay. December wedding number 4, and this time it's equal marriage, recognised by every court of law in the land, but still completely ignored by the Church of England. But as another 4 years passed, on December the 12th, 2018, John died following a short illness. Although John and I never quite got used to calling each other husband, I used the word with pride at the hospital and occasions afterwards. And you are Mr. Shenton. And what is your relationship to the deceased? Husband. Oh, okay, I'll just put civil partner. No, you won't. You'll put husband. John Griffiths, husband. And then I did all that, I moved all that, and then when John died, these are his clothes, and I actually put all that cartoon story onto patches and made a quilt out of it, and that's now in Queer Britain Museum. So if you want to go and see that there, and that's it, that's my story. I'm more than a t-shirt with writing on. See back for details. Okay. Thank you.